Hey everybody, welcome to lesson 2 of how to, you know, succeed in the oral bagrut in the video section. So today we are going to have a lesson about how to create an elaborate response for the first question, right? Where you're supposed to describe what happens in the video. All right, so the previous lesson we talked about what language we should use when we describe videos, and we know that we need to basically talk about it as if it is a fact in the world, and not something that happened in the past, right? So if you want to talk about grammar, you need to use mostly present simple when describing a story, describing a video. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so there are a few important principles that we should notice when we are, or that we should take note of when we're talking about the cope, right? So the first one is basically all stories, and definitely the videos, because the videos are usually these short stories. They follow a basic structure, right? With an opening, that kind of gives you the setting, gives you the context of what's happening, builds up the characters, and so on. Then you have a middle part where usually there's some kind of conflict or some kind of surprise, and then there's an ending, right? And how the whole story comes to an end, and often there's some kind of something that has to do with the meaning of the video, right? Or the meaning of the story. And that is something that you should also kind of notice, because maybe in the second question, where there's like a higher order thinking skill question about the meaning of the video or about why someone did something, so you should take note of that as well. Okay, so that's one thing that we should notice. The second thing is that it's very hard to remember everything that happens in a 3 to 5 minute video, right? And when you want to give an elaborate response, it's good to remember as much detail as you can, okay? In order to do that, you need to take notes. So during the video, you need to kind of write down keywords. Doesn't matter if it's in Hebrew and English, so that you can use that for your response after the video ends. And then another thing is that don't just focus on the story. It's not just a story, okay? It's not just the plot, alila, of the video. It's also the context. Like, you need to notice other things that are happening. Where are they? Who else is there in the video? Uh, Maybe some like details that might have some meaning that you want to put into the video, to the response itself, okay? And that gives your response, like the way you answer the question, it makes it more rich, and then it makes it more elaborate and longer, so that you can get the full points, okay? So a little bit on like note-taking strategies. So first, before even watching the video, prepare like a format on a page, okay, with like beginning, middle, and end, right? So you want to organize your draft that way, because it'll help you keep a more orderly way, like keep your notes in order. And then when you actually start talking, then you can use that structure, all right? And then the second thing is that you need to write while watching. So you want to keep it short. It can also be in Hebrew. And when I say keep it short, like try to really use just keywords, things that no one else needs to understand, but you. Only you need to understand the notes that you are taking, okay? Because it's just there to help you elaborate and talk about everything you want to in your answer to the question, okay? C, write down keywords about context, not only plot. We kind of talked about this already, okay? It's important to talk about where is the story happening, who is involved, maybe when it is happening. Okay, so those are important things to note. Okay, and then in the end, you need to plan what you would like to say using those keywords. So before you start your response, look at the keywords, think about what you're going to say, and then say it. Okay. So let's try it for a second. So I'm going to give you, I don't know, a few seconds to prepare your note-taking page. You can also just, I don't know, pause the video and prepare it, okay? So let's do that. Pause the video, prepare your note-taking page, and then we'll start with actually watching a video and taking notes, okay? After the video, I'm gonna show you an example of my notes so that you can see, and also my response, so that you can see how to create a nice elaborate response when you actually do this for the video, okay? So let's start. We're gonna watch a video, okay? And I want you to try and take notes, okay? Let's do it. Okay, so what I want you to do now is try to finish up taking your notes, all right? And then I'm gonna show you an example of the notes that I do. So I'm gonna, that I did, and then we will also do a response together. So why don't you pause the video for a second, finish up your notes, and then see if they can help you. Okay, so we're gonna do this step by step. I'm gonna show you my example. Then I will plan, right? And I'll show you how I think when I plan it, okay? And then I'll actually I'll let you have time to plan as well. And then you should do your answer, and then you should listen to my answer, okay? So let's do that. So pause. All right, let's move on to the example. All right. Okay, so these are my example notes, right? So in the beginning, I write girl, classroom, teacher, flashback, scared, and bruise, right? And then in the middle, there's alive, hide, raise hand, bored, hide, teacher sees, and run away. And in the end, there's teacher and the girl and hug and cry. Okay? And so these are all the main things that I noticed, right? Now, I will also add in some things in my response from what I remember, but these are just keywords to help me think about it, right? So now I'm going to show you like the process of how I plan this, okay? So I look at it, okay, so I want to start out with talking about the girl and she's in class and there are other kids and then there's the teacher and you know, the teacher does something that kind of scares her. She raises her hand and the girl thinks about being at home and getting hit and she's scared. And then you see there's a bruise on her hand. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then I'm going to talk about the bruise that it comes alive and moves around, and she tries to hide it, and then she accidentally raises her hand, and then she has to go to the board, and she tries to hide the bruise, but the teacher sees it, so she goes, and then there's the bell, it rings, right? Then she goes away, and in the end, they hug, right? And the girl cries. So I kind of have it in my head now, and so I want you to also try to plan what you're going to say it, okay? Try to remember to use mainly present simple, right? Talk about things as if they are facts and something that doesn't really have a time, okay? And then I will show you my response, and then we'll talk about the response a little bit more, and yeah, so I'm going to give you a second to prepare your own response, okay? Okay. Great. So since you started uh, to since you started planning, now I'm going to show you how to actually do it. And then I would like, and then you should see like what is the difference between how you did it and how I did it. How long was your answer? Okay, because you want to keep it between 1 and 2 minutes. All right, so I'm going to put a timer up for myself to see that I'm indeed taking like at least, like I'll try to get to 2 minutes with my answer. All right. And it can also be more, but don't make it too long because then you won't have enough time for the other questions in the test. Okay. So the video starts out with a girl in a classroom with other students and a teacher. And the teacher comes to her to look at her work or do something. And she raises her hand a bit. And the girl is scared. And then we see a flashback into that the girl has of being hit maybe at home. And she's scared. And the teacher goes away and the girl notices a bruise on her hand and she tries to hide it. And the bruise comes alive and it starts going around her body and she tries to hide it. And she accidentally raises her hand. And the teacher sees that she raised her hand, and she is called to the board to answer an exercise on the board. All the while, her bruise moves from her hand to her face, and the teacher sees the bruise, but then the bell rings, and the girl tries to run away and leave the class. And in the end, the teacher stops the girl, and she gives her a hug, and the girl cries. And so that's what happens in the video, right? So that was a 1 minute and 52-second answer to the question, which would give you a good score, right? And notice that I used the correct language of speaking mostly in present simple, and only when you're talking about two things that happened in the video, like that the teacher calls her to the board because she saw that the girl raised her hand. Because you're talking about what happened in a sequence of events, then you can also use the past simple, okay? But generally, you're talking about a story, right? And you're using present simple. So that would be my example for how to do this, all right? So if you see that there was a difference between how you did it and how I did it, and using context and so on, then I want you to try and practice this again right now by yourself using the same video, okay? So watch the video a second time, make the notes, or even use the notes that you have now to create another elaborate response, and see that you take more than a minute in order to do so, okay? What else? So if you now go online and you go to YouTube and you look for CGI animated short films, all right, I'll write that up for you, then there are plenty of other things that you can use in order to, here, I'll open something. So there are plenty of other videos that you can use to practice this. The more you do this, the better you will be at elaborating, okay? Because you're using the same language points, you're practicing taking notes, you're practicing elaborating on a question, and you will get better, okay? So if you want to look for CGI animated short film, okay? And then there are plenty to choose from. I recommend trying to start with short ones, even though I don't know exactly how long the videos on the Kobe can get up to, but try to limit yourself now to 5 minutes at most, and see if you get better and better at elaborating. Also, the more you practice actually speaking out loud, maybe even record yourself doing it, and then notice if you're using the correct language, okay? Listen to yourself. Notice if you're using the correct language so that you can also spot some grammatical mistakes that you don't notice when you do them, but you will notice when you listen to them, okay? So I really recommend that you take notes, okay? Prepare a response, do it, say your answer, record it, and then listen to it to see A, how long it took you, and B, if there are any mistakes you made that you could prepare for. Okay, so since, as far as I know, the Baguyot are happening as usual in these Corona times, or they're going to find some solution for it, then you need to get moving on, improving your chances of succeeding in the Kobe. Okay, so good luck to everyone, and our next lesson will be coming up shortly. Bye.